right at the $1 trillion mark or above the $1 trillion mark. So the concern is, if they stop this at the end of the month, which they've said they will do, and they probably will do, what's going to happen with interest rates? And if you would have asked me that question 6 months ago, based upon what I have read from economists, and again, I'm not an economist, I'm just a kid from Illinois that tries to read all this stuff, most would have said that interest rates would spike up, 2–3%. That's not the thinking now. The thinking now is 0.5%, maybe a little bit more than 0.5%, which is still very good, which means interest rates will be either above or below 6%. And I know we've been spoiled in this country with low interest rates, and that's one thing you're going to need to work with your consumer, with your buyers and sellers to, well, actually that's one reason why they should be buying right now and locking in, because rates will go up, but they're not going to go up that much. So after they start to go up, and if they do go up, remember, think back, I started selling real estate 35 years ago, and interest rates were 7 3/4, and then they jumped to 8 3/4, and I remember trying to sell houses at 19 or 20% interest rates, so 6% is pretty doggone good. But why are we saying now that interest rates are not going to go up that much when the Fed stops buying? Two reasons. One is, when the Feds are buying these mortgage-backed securities, they're using our money. But they're not throwing all that money away because they're buying that money. It's a good thing because it's kept interest rates down. But those are assets that the federal government has. And they can sell those mortgages down the road. So the thing that they have said is they are not going to turn around and starting to try to sell those mortgages. If they tried to do that right away, interest rates, they say, would spike up. So the Fed has said we're going to keep the $1.25 trillion worth of mortgage-backed securities. We're not going to sell them for a long time. That's a good thing. The more important thing is the fact that now most economists say that because of all the mortgages that are being created now are good, solid mortgages with, with all of the underwriting that should have been done, the first part of this century, that the spread between the 10-year treasuries and what the mortgage-backed securities are returning now are strong enough that private investors, institutions, pension funds, education funds, and so forth, are going to start to get back into that. And if that's the case, interest rates won't rise very much. So that's why I think, even though it's a concern, I don't think it's that much of a concern. And from what I'm gathering is, rates will go up, but they probably will hover somewhere around 6%, which all of you I know can overcome. Another concern is inflation. The amount of money that we're printing and the big money that the government is spending, we're going to see inflation 2 to 5 years from now. And again, that's another reason why I think it's smart to buy real estate now, because the value of real estate, does kind of go up with inflation. But that's not going to hit us, most economists say, for 2 to 5 years. The other big one is foreclosures. Realty Track says this year there will be 2.75 million new foreclosures in the country. So that, that's a concern. Another concern is the shadow inventory of homes. Shadow inventory are foreclosed properties that banks own right now that they have not released for whatever reason. And some of them are not releasing them for altruistic reasons, and that is that they don't want to flood the market. And if you flood the market, that puts pressure on prices, and the prices would go down. So that's a good reason. The other reason is sort of good, because they first of all, they don't want to, if they released them, then they have to write that as a loss on their books, which they don't want to do. But the other reason they're kind of holding on is they think they're very positive on the fact that real estate's the most solid investment you can make in this country, and that real estate values will start to go up. And then when they release them and get them sold, it will be less of a loss on their books. So that shadow inventory of 1.7 million properties will probably make its way to the market this year or next year. I mentioned rising inventories this year. That's going to happen as a result of the more foreclosures, and again, that'll put a little pressure on prices. I mentioned the sales mix, 53% to move-up buyers. We need to get the move-up buyers back in the marketplace. And then, I should mention, sales are up over last year. Every month, sales are up over last year. But if you look at the national numbers, they've gone down. And it's not as scary as you might think. For example, November, there were 6.54 million annualized homes sold in November. And obviously that's because people thought that the tax credit was going to expire, and there was a lot of pressure to get homes sold, which was good, which was very good. That dropped over 1 million in December, then another 500,000 in January. But again, a lot of that's due to the weather, to the snow. Oh, my lady there, she left. It always gives the applause for the snow. But anyway, due to the snow and due to the holidays. So these are concerns that I have, but they're not that horrible of a concerns, but you need to know this. Because, you know, the reason I share this with you is so that you have this knowledge. Because when you're dealing with buyers and sellers, you know, they may not know all of this stuff, but they will know some of it. And hopefully, you know, what I've shared with you, you have the ability to say, oh yeah, I understand this, I agree with you that, but here's another take on that. Now, I want to spend, you know, maybe 5 minutes and kind of get on the soapbox, and this is going to kind of an editorial comment, and this is on government spending. First of all, I don't want the government in my life any more than I think probably any of you do. And the, you know, amount of money that the government's spending and printing, you know, is kind of scary. But my point is, you know, if we need to do that, and a lot of economists say, you know, we do need to print some money, we do need to do things to stimulate the economy. What I wish they would do would be to spend it a little bit more wisely, you know, with a little bit of a return for the taxpayer. Because it's our money, you know, I mean, it's our money. Last year, our deficit, you know, and I'm not saying good or bad, but last year our deficit was, what, $1.3, $1.4 trillion. I've never really heard trillion too much until the last couple of years. I've added up the amount of money that we have committed, our government is committed to spend, and again, of our money, that's over $3 trillion with a T. Now, the tax credit this year, that's going to expire April 30th, the total cost to our government, and this would have shocked me years ago, but it doesn't shock me now, is $18 billion. $18 billion. And I'm going to switch a little bit here and talk about something that, and bear with me and let me get through this. We've also committed $75 billion to try to save fellow Americans who have lost their home or are in the process of losing their home. Now, it's terrible that any American would lose their home, and my heart goes out, and I wish, you know, there was some way that we could save every single one of the people that are concerned and that may lose their home. But the problem is that this is a very expensive program, and the $75 billion was supposed to save 4 million Americans through loan modifications, and after a year, almost a year and a half, 60% of the loan modifications failed. 60% failed. So being the school teacher, I mean, $75 billion, when this program's over, times 60%, that means that we will have wasted $45 billion. You know, trying to do the right thing to save everyone's home. But quite honestly, we can't do that. Now, my heart really goes out to somebody, say in Las Vegas, that's a hard-working family that purchased a home for $500,000, put 20% down, have a $400,000 mortgage, and their home's worth $250,000. That's criminal. But it's hard for me to have, you know, a lot of sympathy for somebody that paid $500,000 for a home, put no money down, did a 20% second, had no loan docs, didn't even have to prove that they owned the home. You know, what I like to say is some people got gamed by the system and some people gamed the system. So, you know, the thing is, I just wish we would have spent a little bit more of our money helping the industry that can help our country the most. You know, $18 billion is not a lot when you think that you're going to get a lot of return from this $18 billion. You know, every time we sell a home, we get $60,000 back into the local economy. You know, a percentage of that goes back into taxes, goes back, you know, to the government. The fact that we create a job every time we sell a home. You know, I did the math on this, and I took $75 billion, I divided it by the 4 million Americans that it's supposed to work, and that came out to $19,000 a person. And I thought, you know, why don't we just, rather than have all of these people on payroll that are, you know, trying to figure all this stuff out and all this bureaucracy, why don't we have a program where maybe a husband and a wife, maybe the husband lost their job, maybe their mortgage payment's $1,000 a month, maybe the wife can work and they have unemployment and they can come up with $500 a month to pay for their mortgage payment. And they go see a counselor every month saying, okay, here we are, nothing has changed, here's my